The best is no more.
Three-time heavyweight champion and perhaps the most well-known athlete in the world, Muhammad Ali, passed away last night at a hospital in the Phoenix region.
He was 74.
One of the greatest athletes in history, Muhammad Ali, is said to have had his final resting place disturbed under unexpected circumstances.
I must be the best. I am the world's king, God. Keep it in place. Keep it in place. Keep it in place. Ferdinand. Keep it in place. I'm a nasty guy, you're not that attractive. I made the wall tremble. I made the wall tremble.
There were rumors that Ali's tomb had been secretly opened 9 years after he was buried. There was no fanfare or publicity, just a small group of people in complete secrecy.
However, the subsequent events have generated a surge of conjecture, amazement, and incredulity. According to reports, scientists who were bound to silence were astounded by what they saw. Not dust, not deterioration, just silence. What would have motivated a group of specialists in Ali's family to dig his grave after almost 10 years? What did they discover that even the most logical brains were silenced? Come explore the peculiarities of Muhammad Ali's tomb with us. Why were people interested in Muhammad's grave? On June 10, 1036, Muhammad Ali was buried in Louisville, Kentucky.
A titan, a heavyweight champion whose struggles spanned politics, civil rights, religion, and individual dignity, had just passed away. His faith and privacy were mirrored in his funeral, which was as lavish and poignant as it was. He was buried in a sealed vault made to survive a lifetime and then some at Cave Hill Cemetery, one of the oldest and most respectable cemeteries in the United States. The actual funeral was a scene of international grief. Athletes, actors, spiritual leaders, and heads of state all came to show their appreciation. However, Ali's family made it very obvious that they desired peace behind the elaborate wedding. Privacy. No show after death. No exalted monument. His last moment is captured without a camera flash. His funeral was conducted strictly in accordance with Islamic law. The Muslim community's prayers, a shroud, an immediate burial, no toxic chemical embalming, and above all unhindered repose. There wasn't much space for disruption because his grave was enclosed in a reinforced vault underground. But after almost 10 years, something changed. A modest but serious decision was made, according to unconfirmed sources and a blog post that went viral and lit up corners of the internet. The tomb of Ali would be opened. Not for publicity, not for customary exhumation, but apparently out of concern. Worry for the vault's structural soundness and the sanctity of the contents below. According to reports, Muhammad Ali's mausoleum had begun to show signs of minor structural issues. It had pressure points that suggested underlying movement, a small displacement in alignment, and hairline fissures at its base. Over time, some specialists subtly brought up the idea of gradual foundational movement or seismic influence. It was obvious that something was shifting beneath the surface, whatever of the source, and it could not be denied for much longer. Some of Ali's family members apparently worried a lot about this prospect. It was reported to be emotionally and spiritually distressing to consider that environmental deterioration could have an impact on his body in addition to natural breakdown. Furthermore, there were persistent but unsubstantiated allegations that strange things had been happening close to the graveyard. During night security patrols, there are sudden decreases in temperature and flickering metallic lights. They were written off by some as urban legends. Some thought these indicators were too reliable to be disregarded. According to reports, the family contacted a group of mortuary scientists and preservation specialists they trusted. Their goal was to ascertain whether a controlled, respectful examination of the gravesite could be carried out without violating Islamic law or igniting the media frenzy that such an action would undoubtedly cause. Consequently, the preparations were made in silence. They put together a team. For regular upkeep, the cemetery's grounds were closed. Although security was doubled, it was still covert. And Muhammad Ali's tomb was opened early one spring morning, some 9 years after the world had bid him farewell. Only a closed circle of trusted people and silence, no headlines, announcements, drone footage, or paparazzi flurry. The most unresolved question is what specifically led to the final approval to open the burial. Was the environment really at risk?
Something else, something unsaid, or a family's silent need for assurance that their loved one was not disturbed? Notably, the story has not been verified by any reliable news outlet. No disturbance to the burial has been acknowledged in public documents. However, the blog asserts that the family intended for that concealment to exist. Press, leaks, and spectacles are all absent. It was merely a silent examination that apparently evolved into something much more remarkable. The decision to open Muhammad Ali's tomb, if it is real, was not made lightly, whether it was motivated by structural concerns, spiritual guidance, or a combination of the two. It was created with respect, prudence, and the somber weight of what it might disclose. What, however, was discovered that morning within the tomb? At that point, the mystery grows more profound and the silence overpowers the words. What was discovered? It was said to be a cold, peaceful, and exceptionally still morning. There was strict security. Under the pretense of structural maintenance, the cemetery has been closed to the general public. A small group of carefully chosen people, scientists, cemetery officials, and Ali family members stood in silent expectation close to Muhammad Ali's tomb, a location that the world had long regarded as inviolable. Since the day it was sealed in 2016, the burial tomb had not been disturbed. It was built to last, according to reports. Beneath Cave Hill Cemetery is a superior fortified cage. Rumor has it that in order to maintain the integrity of the chamber, even the tools needed to enter the tomb had to be specially made. However, the tone apparently changed from cautious procedure to hushed disbelief when the vault door was unsealed and the last slab of protecting stone was lifted. The reference video and blog article that started this whole flurry of conjecture spoke of the incident with wonder and veneration. Expecting natural decay, the team braced themselves as the vault opened. The passing of 9 years leaves its impact, even in the most sealed circumstances. They expected skeletons, rumpled clothing, dust, and deterioration. They discovered something quite different instead. Muhammad Ali's remains lay quietly within the vault, apparently in a state of uncanny preservation that defied belief. The blog claimed that the skin had not broken down. The features of the face were still identifiable. His hands were still resting lightly on his chest as though he were just dozing. It was also reported that his clothing was free of mold, dampness, and collapse. No unpleasant smell, no indication of pest infestation, and no internal coffin structure collapse were present. It appeared that the tomb had transformed into a flawlessly sealed capsule that had been spared from the effects of time and the elements. According to reports, the few scientists in attendance froze and were unable to talk. According to accounts, the air inside the room was exceptionally clear. No insects, no fungal spores, and no unusually high humidity. The temperature was steady and low, much more constant than the earth around it should have been. How is this possible? Of course, there are innumerable documented instances of partial body preservation, frequently brought about by a unique confluence of harsh cold, dry conditions, or chemical treatment. The extent of the preservation, however, was what shocked the onlookers. Not only the state of the body but also the surroundings. The tomb's inside appeared to be undisturbed by time. This sparked rumors right away. Was spontaneous preservation at work here? An uncommon abnormality in forensics? Or was it another thing? A spiritual thing? His body was wrapped in linen that had not deteriorated or browned, according to reports. No symptoms of internal pressure damage, normal body collapse, or erosion of the face structure, features that usually fade with time, were seen. Indeed, a number of bystanders reportedly commented that Ali had a calm face, almost as if he were grinning. According to the viral footage, the comments were said by someone in the room. He seemed to have only been here for a day. Islamic burial customs forbid the use of embalming agents. This was exactly what Muhammad Ali had done. Returning to the ground as naturally as possible was one of his last desires. However, based on these assertions, he had not been claimed by nature. It was powerful, sacred, and inexplicable to those in attendance. The speculation started right away. Was this an act of spiritual preservation, a sign from God? Could it be that a guy so full of life had somehow refused to decay, rather than rise again, in the most literal sense of the word? There were skeptics, of course. Some wondered if the claims were exaggerated. Others questioned whether unidentified preservation techniques that had not been made public were employed. Were special materials used to line the vault? Had the soil conditions kept temperatures consistently low? However, after almost 10 years, none of these ideas could adequately explain the complete absence of disintegration.
Perhaps most disturbingly, there were no official forensic findings or photos, just the silence of those who were supposedly there. It is alleged that the family demanded that no pictures be taken, that no samples be taken out, and that the items recovered remain in the hallowed area where they were located. Rather, the people who were there reportedly stood silently for a few minutes before sealing the grave again. No press release, no medical analysis, no more interference. To lock the enigma back under the soil, they merely shut the vault. The story as it is reported online like a hybrid of spiritual encounter and folklore. However, the emotional weight of the supernatural is undeniable, even for those who are dubious of it. Even after his passing, Ali continued to garner attention, make headlines, and inspire people to wonder about the possibilities.
Muhammad Ali's excellence was not limited to the ring or the domain of human achievement, according to those who believe the account.
It was brilliance beyond the material world. A force that was revered even in the past. Even if you don't believe it, the narrative nevertheless conveys a powerful message about how the world still sees Ali not just as a fighter, but also as a symbol. A representation of fortitude, transcendence, and untouchable presence. However, based on these assertions, he had not been claimed by nature.
That wasn't all, though.
Someone apparently spotted something else as the onlookers stared in awe of the complete body. Not included in the clothing, not included in the coffin, and most definitely not included in any funeral rite. There was a strange spherical black object near the bottom of the vault, almost exactly at the foot of the body. Smooth, around grapefruit-sized. Gleaming softly in the dim light carried into the tomb, it had a solid yet crystalline quality. There were rumors that nobody knew what it was or how it got there.
Nothing utilized in the burial matched it. No documents of the internment mentioned it.
It bore no resemblance to any religious object or tombstone element. According to reports, one person knelt down to touch it. Despite the grave's warmth, the surrounding air was characterized as frigid. According to others, when the tomb was originally opened, it pulsed very softly.
That's not possible, others responded. Just a visual trick.
The mind is only playing with nerves.
However, the item stayed there. Glassy, black, and immobile.
Although removing it for analysis was discussed, the family was emphatic, based on the blog post and the video narration. The tomb would not be disturbed.
Not even this odd object.
It was to be softly recorded in the notes of the scientists present, and they were to leave it alone.
Why? Since none was able to describe what it was.
More significantly, nobody wanted to tamper with something that was, by all accounts, already incomprehensible.
It has been explained by a few theories on the internet.
A geode that developed over time, a sentimental object that a mourner placed covertly?
Others provide a more enigmatic suggestion.
A spiritual relic. A sign from God.
A cosmic seal, even.
Although that may seem unrealistic, it's important to remember that in legend from many cultures, strange stones or crystals found in graves are sometimes connected to transformation, protection, or eternity. Some people think they mark those who were selected by something we can't understand. The object has never been documented or subjected to scientific analysis. Just a few sentences in a narrative, no picture or X-ray, and the responses of others who claim to have witnessed it firsthand.
And for that reason, the whole story is so eerie. The amount of astonishment combined with the quiet, the restraint, and the lack of proof.
Eventually, the tomb was sealed again. The item remained unaltered. The air was purified, and the place returned to its peaceful state. According to reports, those in attendance prayed several times, not out of fear but rather out of respect for Ali, for what they had seen, and possibly for what they were still unable to completely understand. One thing was certain, regardless of whether this black crystal-like object was real or possessed power, meaning, or symbolism.
Explanations of the findings.
Silence became the official language as soon as the tomb was resealed. There were no published scientific reports. There were no remarks. No pictures were made public. Whispers, stories of an uncorrupt body, a sacred silence, and a black crystal-like object that was difficult to categorize were all that were left. The world, which was insatiably curious, was left to speculate, conjecture, and fill in the gaps that the stillness would not explain. The scientific community, which holds that everything has a logical origin, regardless of how perplexing it initially seems, was, of course, the first group to react. It is not impossible for them to imagine a well-preserved body after 9 years in the earth. It is uncommon, but not unheard of. Decomposition can be significantly slowed in extremely controlled settings, particularly sealed burial chambers that preserve constant temperatures and low humidity. Organic material can be preserved for much longer than anticipated by elements like airtight structure, pest-free conditions, and mineral-rich soil. Even virtually entire remains, including skin, hair, and clothing, have been found in certain ancient tombs found in deserts or cold regions. These remains were preserved by the environment. Could Muhammad Ali's tomb have served as a kind of preservation chamber in and of itself? Maybe. According to reports, Ali was laid to rest in a reinforced casket that was sealed to keep air and water out. It's possible that the steel, concrete, and specialty coatings utilized helped to stabilize the interior temperatures. Despite its fluctuations, Louisville's climate does permit extended stretches of cool, undisturbed earth, particularly in deeper burials. But there are still unanswered questions. A certain amount of disintegration is anticipated even in the best of circumstances. Skin becomes thinner. Organs fall apart. The fabric gets darker. However, none of these events occurred if the accounts are accurate. Scientists who claim to have seen the scene said it was hard to classify the preservation. More speculative theories have resulted from this. Natural mummification is one suggestion. A body may quickly dry up under some circumstances, which inhibits the growth of bacteria that promotes decomposition. However, Ali was not interred in a dry or well-ventilated space. He was buried underground, wrapped in cloth, in the damp environment of Kentucky. Salt, heat, and wind are usually necessary for natural mummification. There were none of those. Anaerobic preservation is another theory. Decomposition causing bacteria cannot flourish if oxygen is completely removed. Such a vacuum could be produced by a fully sealed casket, but once more, this would just postpone deterioration rather than permanently stop it. It's almost extraordinary that nothing has changed in 9 years. The spiritual lens comes next. Cases like this are viewed as manifestations of divine favor by many members of the Muslim community and other religious communities. There are accounts of martyrs and virtuous spirits whose bodies never rot in Islamic eschatology. A sign to the living and an act of mercy from Allah. Although they are uncommon and not frequently reported, such claims have been made for centuries in a variety of religious traditions. Saints whose bodies are preserved without embalming are referred to as incorruptible in Catholicism. Saint John Vianney and Saint Bernadette of Lourdes. Eastern Orthodox saints and other non-Catholics share comparable customs. Decades after they were buried, their graves were unearthed to find bodies that appeared to have not aged. Would something like this be happening to Muhammad Ali, a man of great faith, humility, and spiritual fortitude? In the religious canon, he was not a saint, but to many, particularly in the black Muslim community, he was even more unique. A live representation of divine will. A guy who, at all costs, stood up for what was right. Who sacrificed Olympic medals, fame, and fortune for faith. Who, despite the world's refusal to do so, treated individuals with decency. Maybe some people believe Ali deserved to be incorruptible if that's a symbol of heavenly recognition. Then there is the item. The enigma is further complicated by the black, spherical stone that resembles crystals and was purportedly discovered at Ali's foot. First, scientists would wonder, what was it made of? Was it man-made or natural? Was it placed there on purpose, or could it have developed over time? Online, geologists conjectured that it might have been a type of volcanic substance with a glossy black polish, such as onyx or obsidian. However, Kentucky soil does not naturally contain either of them, particularly not in flawless spherical forms with crystalline structures. According to others, it might have been a geode that developed gradually from mineral deposits under pressure.
Once more, though, how likely is it that a geode of this kind would form precisely beneath a grave?
And in great condition within an enclosed area that isn't exposed to air or groundwater.
Others tended to use metaphor. Black crystals are symbolic of protection, anchoring, and warding off evil in many civilizations.
For instance, onyx has long been considered a psychic shield. According to some beliefs, these stones are drawn to significant or highly charged locations.
Could such a stone have a spiritual significance? Was it a coincidence, a ritual, or powers beyond our current comprehension that put it there?
Some commenters even went so far as to refer to it as a marker or a seal. A sign that no one was to ever again touch Ali's tomb. That in that silent place under the earth, something had been decided. An indication to the people who opened it that what they discovered should not be altered.
They also paid attention. They left the stone.
Just silence, respect, and no samples or testing. Ultimately, the human response to it all may provide a more telling explanation than the vault, the body, or the black crystal. The decision made by those in attendance to keep the results private. The fact that there were only a few blog posts, one video, and a tidal wave of rumors, no pictures, interviews, or spectacular news coverage.
That's the true tale.
Perhaps the stillness isn't coincidental if the claims are accurate, if a legend was kept alive in spite of all the odds, and if a sign suddenly arose.
Perhaps that's the idea.
Perhaps this was a moment to be observed and reverently cherished, rather than a discovery to be examined under fluorescent lights.
Throughout his life, Muhammad Ali was well known for his voice, his movements, and his ability to yell truth into arenas that attempted to quiet him.
And in passing away, he might have left one last message, not via words or blows, but by silence, serenity, the unbroken tranquility of a corpse, and a mystery that defied all expectations. One thing is true regardless of whether you think the answer is due to soil chemistry, religious tradition, or something else entirely.
Muhammad Ali might never be seen by the world again, either in this life or the next, or perhaps even in the next. Muhammad Ali's family had one constant desire from the start: privacy.
Ali had a core of calm dignity away from the cameras, even during the height of his stardom when everyone was watching him every step. And his family brought that same value to his final resting place after he died away in 2016.
Why did his family wish to keep quiet?
Therefore, many questioned why this wasn't breaking news when rumors discreetly and without official confirmation appeared that his grave had been opened 9 years later.
Why didn't headlines focus on it? Why was there no news conference? No formal declaration? Not even a scientific paper?
It appears that the solution is found in the core of Muhammad Ali's identity and the way his family has decided to carry on his legacy.
The family desired complete discretion during the entire procedure, according to the few tales that have gone viral online.
Under stringent non-disclosure agreements, the exhumation was carried out.
There was no invitation to the outside media. There was no sharing of documentation.
Under the supervision of private security and a highly trustworthy group, the entire operation was conducted early in the morning behind locked cemetery gates. Speculative sources suggest that they have several reasons for their silence.
First, religious and spiritual factors.
It is considered a serious offense in Islam to disturb a grave.
Actually, unless it's absolutely required, it's generally avoided.
If the family did consent to the tomb's opening, it was probably after much prayer, discussion with religious leaders, and a compelling spiritual reason. Publicizing such an act runs the danger of drawing criticism or misunderstanding from the larger Muslim community. They might have done so to preserve the moment's sacredness and steer clear of controversy by keeping quiet.
Second, honor Ali's desires. Muhammad Ali stated before he died that he did not want his death to be a spectacle.
In keeping with his religious beliefs, he desired a speedy burial free from the media hysteria that had engulfed much of his life. It is possible that the family was honoring his last request by keeping any posthumous findings confidential.
To sleep soundly without turning into a curiosity. Third, momentary protection.
What was discovered within the tomb was not only unexpected, but also holy, according to those rumors. The state of his physique, the environment, and the peculiar black object that resembled a crystal.
The emotional weight they allegedly carried is undeniable, regardless of whether you believe these specifics or not.
In the digital age, it's possible that the family realized something that is frequently overlooked. That when analyzed in the public eye, certain mysteries lose their significance. They maintained the moment's impact by keeping quiet. The awe, the wonder, the questions that remain.
And lastly, self-preservation.
Controversy is inevitable when a world-renowned figure's tomb is opened, particularly if they are interred with religious and cultural importance. Theories, critiques, and charges. The family avoided all of it by being silent.
There's no need to elaborate. There's no need to explain.
They just did what they felt was right for themselves, for Ali, and for the veracity of what they saw. And perhaps the strongest statement they could have made in a society that is so willing to expose, host, and profit from everything is to remain silent. Initially, there was quiet.
There is no breaking news. No formal declaration.
Only a trickle of conjecture on obscure websites, underground forums, and YouTube channels with conspiracy theories. However, the internet didn't overlook the rumors that Muhammad Ali's tomb might have been secretly opened almost 10 years after his burial.
Public response.
Through the back doors of curiosity, rather than through headlines or confirmed tweets, as is typically the case with viral news. Silently, reports with names like "What they found in Muhammad Ali's tomb will shake you" or "Ali's body was never meant to be seen again until now" started to circulate. They touched a nerve despite their low quality and frequently anonymous narration. People leaned in because they couldn't believe it was being disregarded, not because they instantly believed it.
Why hadn't it been reported by any of the major media? Why are there no pictures, records, or affirmations? More significantly, if it were untrue, why would the family keep quiet? The tale was given life rather than killed by the lack of widespread media attention.
There was space for amazement in the information void. And public voices became louder while official voices became quiet.
Some were skeptical right away.
They questioned the unidentified sources, the lack of proof, and the timeliness.
This, they contended, was really a myth in the making.
Like the urban tales that always seem to come out years after the death of a popular figure. According to one Redditor, magical realism is not necessary for Ali's legacy. In fact, the man was a legend.
However, dozens more were speculating for every skeptic. If accurate, what does it suggest that after 9 years in the grave, Ali's body stayed immaculate? What was the mysterious black crystal-like object that was allegedly found next to his remains? Was it something divine, natural, or symbolic?
The tale provoked serious and occasionally contentious discussion among the religious communities, especially among those who were acquainted with Islamic customs. While not a creed, Islam has linked piety and righteousness to the preservation of the body after death. Other religions also hold the idea of incorruptibility, with Catholicism being the most well-known. However, the possibility that it was linked to a contemporary Muslim leader as international as Ali sparked admiration and discussion.
Was this a divine sign? A reminder of his loyalty, his morals, and his struggles for justice and human decency outside of the ring?
On social media, some believers praised and prayed for the incident, calling it a miracle. Others cautioned against elevating Ali to the status of a saint. They underlined that whatever was discovered, if anything, belonged to Ali and his creator, and that the grave's dignity should be kept secret. Conspiracy theorists, meanwhile, took advantage of the situation.
Discussions involving the black crystal-like object ranged from ancient relics concealed on Earth to extraterrestrial intervention in fringe theory hotspots on the internet.
According to one widely accepted idea, the object is comparable to the black stone of the Kaaba in Mecca. However, this was quickly criticized for being historically disconnected and theologically unsuitable. For others, however, the similarities were too alluring. They contended that Ali was a representation of both spiritual rebellion and athletic prowess. What if he wasn't just a fighter? What if, even in death, he was protected and chosen? Others hypothesized that his family's reticence was motivated by protection as much as privacy. Protection from exploitation, public outrage, or even from influential organizations that might wish to suppress such findings.
Muhammad Ali's intense emotional appeal was at the center of it all.
He was more than just a sporting hero to millions of people.
In addition to being a political hero, he represented Muslim religion, black pride, and unwavering moral courage.
The idea that something bigger than man would have rewarded someone who gave so much was something that many wanted to believe. The intrigue of the story captivated younger generations as well, not because they grew up watching Ali fight. In a time when it seems like every secret is revealed and every cemetery robs the past of its dignity, Ali's purported exhumation was shrouded in hallowed silence, something this generation hardly ever experiences.
Why wasn't anyone talking if something really happened within that tomb? No headline could overpower that quiet. This is not for profit, it informed people. This isn't just for show. This is for a very other purpose. People are therefore left wondering. Is this a true story? Was the tomb indeed opened? Is there a spiritual or scientific explanation? Was the thing made of black crystal a natural occurrence or a more profound artifact? We might never find out. Perhaps it is the legacy that Ali leaves us when he passes away.
A resistance to be confined, to be completely described, to be reduced to a little size, just like he did in life. Because the world watches when a man uses his voice and fists to fight for truth. Please click the next video that appears on your screen, like this one, and subscribe if you liked it.